Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy Podcast, episode 443 for the week of March 3rd, 2020. My name is Ryan Higgins, who's here with me this week.
Brock Sager.
Kevin.
And Charlie.
Wah, wah, wah. Now, unfortunately, our good friend Bryce was supposed to be here today, but due to the ongoing what is novel? What is the novel part of novel coronavirus? I don't understand what that is. What's novel mean?
It's a new virus.
Is that what it means?
It's an uncatalogued virus before now.
Novel means new catalog? Like nouveau? I honestly have no idea what the novel part of that
novel
means.
Is new.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Like, this is a novel way to start the podcast, talking about a virus.
Yeah.
No,
there it is.
Sure. Okay, I see it. Sure. Well, anyway, the coronavirus
has robbed us of Bryce.
Is actually going to be like everything else a major topic of conversation tonight.
Now, if I could,
he did not get it. By the way, like his work trip was canceled because.
Oh, I thought he just drank a shit ton of Corona and got passed out.
If I could have 30 seconds of self-indulgence here, since
course.
Bryce is not here, we'll limit it to 30 seconds instead of.
The whole podcast?
I went through with our pregame plan even without him before coming here. And I met a delightful bartender named Julie at a bar named Murphy's Law. And Julie is interested in geek topics. And I told her I was leaving the bar after my rounds in Bryce's honor to come here. And she said, "Oh, will you shout me out on the podcast? I've never heard it before." So I said I would shout out Julie, so I'm going to do it up front so she doesn't have to listen to the whole 2 hours.
I would just check out now.
Yeah. Julie, here's your shout out. Thank you for the stiff pours. Bryce and I both appreciate it, even though he was only with me by phone instead of live. And now on with the show.
Well, thank you for listening for the first 2 minutes of the podcast. I don't know, stick around. Maybe you'll like what we talk about. I have no idea.
I just wanted to be there for Bryce Larson Quote's reaction to the news.
Oh, he's very sad. He's on Twitter. He already heard it.
He reacted on Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like everyone. But yes, unfortunately, the coronavirus is also another story that we have to talk to tonight, because mere hours before starting to record this podcast, DC, Dark Horse, and Penguin Random House officially pulled out of Emerald City Comic Con. And we were starting to have a conversation, but I figured, why don't we just save this for the podcast? So it's in 2 weekends, and this is the first con that people have really started to pull out.
It's actually like a week
like
from
10 days.
Thursday.
Yeah. Now, we had C2E2, which is a convention in Chicago. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the podcast. There was PAX East. That went off. Those are the two big ones, and they kind of started the con season. Emerald City tends to be the next big one, but companies are pulling out. These are for-profit conventions. I understand, like Charlie, you said that you guys had a work thing, but they canceled. Like Bryce's work thing canceled. That's understandable because these are company expenses. It's probably, better safe than sorry, and also maybe financially sound to cancel these type of things, especially if a lot of people are afraid of traveling. For-profit conventions like Emerald City, like a meteor could be about to strike, and I don't think they're going to cancel. So
yeah, but I am curious, just from a reality perspective, how many companies, how many celebrities, what is the tipping point if they get enough cancellations for what people are there for? But they have to start offering refunds to those.
Forgot the other big one, GDC. A lot of the Game Developer Conference in San Francisco. A lot of the companies have already pulled out, so they officially postponed GDC till the summer. Yeah. I could see conventions saying we're not refunding tickets, we're not refunding booths, but we're going to postpone to a different date.
Yeah.
But I also could see a lot of conventions, and whether it's work or for-profit, doing this, and therefore there are no open dates in the summer or in the early.
And the other tricky part with that is, what is the date where you go, okay, everything's cool now.
Yeah.
Come back to Seattle.
We don't know.
Right.
Well, and I mean, that for me has been the...
Well, Trump said it's not bad, so yeah, we're fine.
For me, that's...
Pence is on the case.
If I was traveling today, I admit I would not be as worried as the prospect of traveling a few months from now. There is that reality of right now we're in the early days and do not know how quickly or not it's going to spread and that kind of thing.
I have a Disneyland trip planned for the end of the month. We are going short of
Disneyland
closing
down.
it, we're going. I don't know what would make me not go. I mean, maybe if I got the coronavirus and I was deathly sick, maybe that would cause it. We are still in our planning to go to Japan in December. Again, short of a travel ban.
But I guess what I'm curious about
but
is...
But at that point, like, they have to refund flights.
Yes.
I can't physically go there. Like, there is a point where they have to offer refunds. They have to give people their money
Reed
back.
Pop,
Yes.
who runs the West Coast conventions, and I think they run NYCC also.
Yeah.
Anyway, they said Emerald City is going on as planned.
Yep.
Who cancels or doesn't cancel, they can't control.
And that's every convention ever.
Well, yeah, of
like,
course.
people cancel constantly. So,
But the only way that they would cancel and just start handing money back, this is as of a few days ago, is a nationwide travel ban.
right.
Which would be the thing that would affect you.
Right. So
a con like this, half the artists could cancel, half the people could just eat the cost of their ticket and not show up, and the convention still goes on.
yep.
So I'm...
If you're a comic fan,
Right.
Emerald City is going to be awesome for you.
So my mentality is this. Half the people not showing up wouldn't matter. They're not going to refund the money for those. The only time I could see them potentially having a problem is if a good percentage of the talent and draw of the convention doesn't
right.
attend.
If most of the companies, the actors that are there to do their autograph sessions, if the vast majority pull out 70, 80%, at that point they really don't have much of a choice.
Yeah.
You would have an empty hall.
But even then, like, I'm
50?
not even sure it needs to get to like 80%. I'm pretty sure if enough high profile people that they have been pushing, like,
DC's a big part of Emerald City.
so I can't say whether or not it's a big part of Emerald City now, but all the times I've been to Emerald City, DC was not a big part of Emerald City.
Really? I thought they had a lot of their people up there, especially now with Bendis and all his
So
guys.
they have had a lot of people who work for DC there, but they tended to have their own tables. They did not tend to have like a big DC booth presence. It just comic creators were there.
Sure. Well, if a lot of those people are canceling, then
Yeah.
that's what we'll have to wait and see. I know, Mitch. One day I'll remember how you officially pronounce his last name.
Just say G-Rads.
Mitch G.
Sure. Artists on Strange Adventures out this week.
We're finally getting a fix of Tom King.
He was one of the first like comic pros online that was like, I have a kid. I am like super paranoid about this stuff. Absolutely no handshakes, no fist bumps, no nothing. Like, sorry,
I'm wearing the gloves all weekend at
right,
C2E2.
right, and got super fucking sick anyway, right?
Yeah.
So he canceled his signing tour with his East Coast signing tour with Tom King because he already. I mean, he probably just got the flu. I mean, it's common crud, more than likely.
More than likely, as we're all medical professionals here on this podcast, more than likely, in his case, was something he was exposed to before even going to the con.
And honestly, that's... For me, it's not really like, if I wanted to make a trip up to Portland or Seattle and I chose to drive there or something, I wouldn't be as worried as the whole going through the airport with, like, for me, it's more the act of traveling where you're going to get exposed to all sorts of stuff more than the going somewhere where it's a little easier to control, like wipe down the table where you have all your stuff and that kind of stuff, and you're probably going to be fine. But
Bubble Boy, just get one of those bubbles. So that guy in the plane who was in like this little like sealed bubble thing.
Just get one of those old school sci-fi like bubble helmets.
Yeah, heck yeah.
That could be part of your cosplay.
So, unfortunate if you're going to Emerald City, but we'll see. So,
Speaking of going to Emerald City,
so that's the question.
Evan.
As of today, we're still going.
So you two, and Lane, are going.
As of today, we're still going.
Okay.
Now, I think Reed Pop and everybody kind of needs to get like shit or get off the pot this week. I don't think this is still going to – the suspense is going to stretch into next Tuesday.
No, because people are already could already be traveling by Monday.
Yeah.
So if it's happening,
I think you'll know by the weekend.
You know Friday morning or it's
Yeah.
on. If they don't say anything by Friday morning, it's on. It's 100% on.
Barring a sudden
Sure.
nationwide travel ban.
Of course.
But yeah.
Yeah, they would have to tell people by Friday. I think, or Thursday. Right? A week's notice is the literal minimal they could offer. If they're like Tuesday, sorry, it's canceled.
No.
Again, short of something outside their control. But yeah, I think you'll know by Thursday or Friday.
Matt Smith canceled, so why go?
Damn it.
Was that specifically because of the coronavirus, or
I don't know. I know he was still on the list of attending like a few days ago. Now I'm looking like the cancel list has grown.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, just make sure you check and
Man, that artist alley is going to be like cheap.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a lot of, like, friend of the show, Jen Bartel canceled.
Yeah.
But one of her points was, for those some artists can't afford to cancel.
right.
Yeah.
Because this is a huge chunk of their yearly income.
Yeah.
Just like to Ryan's point earlier, I think part of it depends on, is this your income or are you being sent there by a company? Like,
Yeah.
I could see a lot of the celebrities being told they can't go.
Yeah.
Because we all know the vendors are just like, fuck it, we got to sell our wares.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think if half the people go and half the vendors go, to me that is still kind of an even turnout. You still have
Emerald City Toy Show.
but if most people go and there's
So I guess.
well, actually, if most people go and there's only a handful of vendors and celebrities, they're going to fucking rake it in because they don't have it. That was like the SF Comic Con that happened like a year or two ago where it was tiny and up like 15,000 people showed up.
That's right.
Buying the floorboards out of that place.
No, I'm curious to see how it sort of shapes up, and even beyond Emerald City, how it shapes up. Just because right now is a really weird space to be in for a lot of these people.
Yeah.
So
So speaking of cancellations, we were talking about this last week that there could be some big stuff going on if during C2E2 DC cancels their publishers panel, which was Jim Lee and Dan Didio the week prior, and now
Well,
just
they
Jim
literally
Lee.
announced they canceled it the day after we recorded.
Right, yeah.
I couldn't find it on the website when we were recording, and I was like,
So Jim Lee had some funny stuff to say while he was at the panel. I'm going to quote some of this. This is from News Around Comic Resources. So they did cancel. They did cancel the C2E2 Meet the Publisher panel. So they did not do that. However, they kept Jim Lee's his own personal panel. So he did have some stuff to say there about everything going on, and we've learned a few things since. He is remaining as DC's publisher. So I don't know what that means for him for Chief Creative Officer, but I guess he's going to do both roles, which I thought there was no way, right?
yeah, I still don't know how he's going to have the bandwidth for the level of responsibility if those roles take on what I think they take on.
Yeah. So I'm going to quote some of these. He says, let me start by saying, to address some of the stuff that's out there, there are rumors, there have been some speculation out there, but DC's been around for 85 years, and we're going to be around another 85.
only 85, Jim?
The actual strategy of DC is to put publishing at the center of everything we do. He calls the comics the engine that drives all of DC's entertainment output. So there's... it's hard for me to talk about things we haven't announced, but I know we've teased some stuff out. Our intent is not to do a line-wide reboot. Our focus is to continue what we've done best, pairing characters with great creators, and continue to make diverse and amazing stories that you guys love. We're telling stories about characters that can fly and going... We're telling stories about characters that can fly and going in other dimensions. It should be a lot of fun. So, I think that, to me... saying our intent is to not do a line-wide reboot, there is your confirmation that we're not going to get, I think, a massive, whatever the rumor was around 5G and all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, maybe replacing the characters would not technically be considered a reboot, but I think that to me, that is how I read it. Again, they could do something temporarily, but I don't believe that these rumored plans for 5G for DC's upcoming comic content is going to be as drastic as maybe we thought. There was stuff a little bit later. We'll talk about that in a little bit, where Scott Snyder talked stuff about death metal. But with Jim Lee, man, I never would have thought Jim Lee being like, I mean, I guess like in charge of DC, but I mean, it makes sense. He really now is Joe Quesada, right? He's really gone from a part of the machine to being the boss, the guy. And that's super cool to have on both sides. Two very artistically talented.
Him, DC buying Wildstorm was just to get him in, and then he worked his way up.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been at a high position his entire time at DC, but this to me is okay. He is now in probably for the long term at this point. I think if this was an AT&T thing, if this was a more drastic change, then maybe you wouldn't see him there. They would put someone else in. He would step down. They would push him aside. But no, I think we can now pretty much assume that this is Didio just being, or Didio's gone, and now Jim Lee is the boss. So in almost every regard, I mean, cool with me. How do you guys feel? I
mean, I am really, really curious just because of the way that he's handled things creatively. Like, he's been co-publisher for a long time, but at the same time, he really had a lot of artistic input into like the redesigned look of Wonder Woman at one point, and
he did all the new 52 designs. Yeah, him and Wildstorm.
And I'm wondering if, given the new level of responsibilities, he's still going to be able to sort of take on some of those creative responsibilities, or is this going to be an additional? Like, are we going to see less Jim Lee variant covers? Are we going to see less artistic output from Jim Lee? Because
maybe Quesada doesn't do as much.
Well, I mean, even from a chief creative officer perspective, like from what I understood of Johns' job, and I could be completely off base here, but I got the impression he was in meetings constantly with people wanting to do video games, television, even comic creators, and like he was all over the place. And you add publisher responsibilities on that for now guiding the entire line and stuff. I can't picture him not doing like 18-hour days and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, these guys do obviously work a ton, but I don't know, I don't know that he could do quite quite as much as he was doing before. I did actually there was a correction. I misspoke in the last podcast. Was corrected and made a note to myself while we were talking about this. When we were talking about Marvel, I accidentally called Dan Buckley Marvel's publisher. Sorry, he's Marvel's president. John Nee, that's Marvel's publisher. So I had got my guys. So publisher, president. Yeah, I mean, it's close enough.
Now, amongst all this Didio fallout, there was
yeah.
Okay.
I hit it.
I know. I had to read and process so much stuff that I wanted to credit the source, and I can't credit the source accurately.
Okay.
So if it's Bleeding Cool, sorry, Ryan.
That's fine.
And if it's The Beat, sorry, Heidi, for confusing it with Bleeding Cool. Somewhere in there was some article about 5G and the idea that it was not a universe-ending reboot.
Right.
That it was those heroes being replaced was like a future setting. And the idea would be a creator could come in and say, I'm going to do a Bruce Wayne Batman story, or I'm going to do who is it supposed to be? Luke Fox?
Luke Fox, yeah.
Batman story, or a...
Yeah, there's a lot
wherever
of...
you land on that timeline, you can just tell your Batman story.
And that was a big part of our conversation. There was a lot of confusion. The rumors were this is going to be the main continuity. The Batman and Detective Comics ongoing books are going to have Luke Fox as Batman. Or it was a standalone kind of Ultimates-like line where they were going to do their own little thing. or it's all bullshit and none of it was going to happen, right? But nobody actually knew,
Right.
and we still don't. So,
Yes.
The
point of this write-up was, if we call it the quote-unquote Earth 1 timeline, that this 5G is the Earth 1 timeline just in the future.
Yeah.
And so a creator just drops in wherever on the period that they want to tell the story.
Now, is that a special ongoing, or is that a special book or in the Batman book? Like the monthly Batman comic?
It wasn't that specific, but that still raises the question of, well, if that's the case, then what about Bruce Wayne becoming Batman in 1938? What happens to that whole thing?
Well, we have Flash 750 that comes out today, where they do start. This is the start of the Generation story. This story will be reprint. The Flash Forward backup story will be reprinted in the Free Comic Book Day book, which is going to be the 0 issue for the Generations comic. I would think, if this was all Dan, and with Jim's comments, that maybe whatever plans they had are pulled back slightly. And I do want to read some comments here. This pulled this on Newsarama because
love your comment of slightly.
Well, that's slightly could be completely, slightly could be slightly. We just don't know.
Well, we're getting those 5 one-shots that kind of are giving us kind of the history of the DC universe and kind of streamlining everything. If you guys read the Legion Millennium 2-parter, right? Where Bendis kind of set kind of this like timeline of the future that Rose goes through. So it could be where it's just 5G is that time period, like you said.
Yeah, because those heroes weren't featured in that.
Because they weren't featured in that. But again, like if you wanted to tell a story in the Commandy, right? Commandy. Era. There's that era there. There's also like, where Supergirl is president. Was she president or something? I don't remember. It was.
Yeah. And the Legion. Yeah.
But no, it could be just they're just trying to set the timeline from where we where we have that kind of early Wonder Woman's the first superhero kind of thing to the Legion. Like this is what our
just seems not to keep repeating this same thought.
Yeah.
But it's one sentence long, so it's quick and painless. It just seems easier to put it on its own Earth.
Yeah.
Boom, you're done.
Well, so this is some of this is from the Beat, some of this is from Newsarama. Some quotes about death metal from Scott Snyder at the panel. He's describing it as the anti-crisis. Let me see where it says. The thing I say about death metal is it connects all the stuff you read from Crisis on Infinite Earth through Doomsday Clock and a couple more. Now, I will say, no spoilers, but there's definitely some references in that Flash 750 to seems like this stuff is actually connected to death metal in some way.
Well, death metal jumps. The Last Night jumped ahead.
In the Last Night's its own future. It's disconnected from everything. I had said,
or is it? Yeah.
Right. Well, I had said, if you want to have this big event, why not have death metal just be involved in the reboot of the universe? You already have the Dark Multiverse. If your big finale is everything kind of gets quote unquote fixed to the Earth 1 time or to whatever the 5G is, right? It makes sense that these would connect in some fashion. On the Beat, why you got that Charlie? On the Beat,
you're holding the thought, Charlie.
Snyder said the sequel to Metal was going to be bigger and better. Actually, that's an actual quote. Despite the current turmoil at DC, so this is from the Beat.
So, based on the Tales of the Multiverse, Dark Multiverse books that we had recently, all those are tied to continuity in one form or another that doesn't even necessarily currently exist.
Yeah, they're all Dark Multiverse.
Which means that's the perfect way to sort of reintroduce those stories, especially if you have to bring in some familiarity with those events. So you don't even necessarily have to reboot the universe, but you could definitely make the characters more aware of everything that's happened through it.
I love the Crisis stuff.
Yes.
But I don't like the fact that they feel they need to like redo the timeline on such a regular basis.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Crisis. Every couple of years, you can shake up some continuity, you can fix some problems, you can change a few things. But to me, I don't see, how do I put this? New 52 changed the DC timeline so strongly.
Yes.
Rebirth was like a half step back.
Which felt like it was meant to be more.
Right. I wonder if this is going to be the full step back.
Yeah.
Especially if with Didio out, and they have enough time because we don't even have solicitations for generation number 2 yet. We have, even if they're like fucking scrap it, we still have 5 months to change these first story arcs. They did New 52 in less time than that. They have the time.
Yeah.
So if Snyder, from what he's saying here, it seems like maybe he wants to, I don't know.
I don't know.
The Anti-Crisis to me sounds like a rollback, right? So,
well,
we'll see.
It sounds to me like the perfect opportunity to roll certain things back.
Sure, of course. I don't break stuff that works, right?
Yeah.
Or don't change stuff if it's not broken. What am I trying to say? Yeah, if
it ain't broke, don't fix it.
The good stuff you could keep. The trash, because we already have the return of Bendis of Superman's parents, right? Mm-hmm. That they're back as of Doomsday Clock, and they're back in current issue of the Superman villains. I think this is where they first show up. So those elements are there. The Dark Multiverse would be a great way to introduce an alternate future DC universe. Along with the 12 other alternate DC universe futures we have.
I'm just thinking dumping certain characters into like the Infinite Crisis universe and how that played out differently and stuff almost forces a revisit the way things were supposed to go. So it kind of gives them an interesting way through the dark reflection of some of these events to bring that knowledge forward to the characters without necessarily aging Bruce Wayne back up. He can know certain events that happened originally in Crisis and 0 Hour and like all this stuff.
We'll see.
Ryan, as a retailer, if they announced, hey, surprise, it's a line-wide reboot. Every title starts with number 1. It is year 1 for every character. All other continuity is null and void.
Okay.
Would you have a feeling about that one way or another?
It's DC. He'd have to check the creative teams.
I mean, that was Rebirth, or that was New 52, right?
Well, except not for Batman and Green Lantern.
Not day one, not year 1.
Yeah,
right?
but this is the first time all of these characters have put on a costume is issue 1.
Also, see, now my brain is just going crazy here. Because if you have these alternate universes, which means they should have a parallel universe where things went the way it did originally. So even if that universe didn't necessarily exist, the whole idea of the multiverse means it's constantly evolving, which means they can easily bring in universes through the dark multiverse based on like original events.
I'm gonna fry his brain. You're forgetting Hypertime.
Well, to me, it's not even forgetting Hypertime. It's getting into the multiversity, like 52 on 52 on 52 on 52. It becomes a multiverse based on each of those worlds. If you take the same mentality within the dark multiverse where everything still exists, you can easily restore continuity beyond any of these events.
My question was, if the main books in the main publishing line were hard reset year 1s, would you object to that idea?
So Ryan and I were talking about this a little bit on Sunday, actually. Like, some of my favorite things are hard resets that have a finite time span. Like, I love Heroes Reborn. I know a lot of people aren't huge fans of it, but I love the idea of this stuff went on for a finite number of issues, and then you got the big celebration of those characters returning back to the normal, like, as a event, as a even like precursor to like the Ultimate Universe and that kind of stuff, where you could put big name creators and let them go crazy on how they can change things up. I don't see a problem with that if they wanted to do, and this is where like marketing versus reality always drives me a little crazy, because marketing is going to come out and be like, this is the way things are now. We have no plans to revert it back. But as a comic fan, I guarantee you after a certain amount of time, marketing will change and be like, this was always the plan. And
well, that's exactly my answer. I think I made this pitch on the podcast as well. You want to kill the Justice League and replace them with all these new heroes for 6 months? Awesome. Make it a big crossover across every book. Have these characters, figure out a way to bring the Justice League back, and they win, and we move on to the next story, right? That's cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. It's not that it couldn't be good. It's the fact that it's not going to last.
Yeah.
I don't mind if they're like, yep, we're going to do this 1 year event. That could be neat.
Yeah.
But anytime they say this is forever, well, that's not forever. Yeah. The problem with the Ultimate books in the end was they were fresh at first, but they end up running into the same problem the original books do, is that you have massive continuity, you have lots of characters, stories kind of meander off in different directions, but they're just, at the end of the day, they just don't have the same staying power as those original stories do. And that's why those characters have lasted.
See, my problem with the Ultimate Universe was exactly the opposite. The more it diverged from... So when Ultimate Universe started, it was getting a chance to retell, and yes, they did some reimagining, but there wasn't an emphasis on we need to do new stuff.
Right. No, they took a hard right at some point, and then that's when people were like, and we're out. Because the books become unrecognizable as what they are. Yeah.
And for me, that's where, as you said, they took the hard right and the Ultimate Universe stumbled. Because if they had stayed on point and built up towards the same sort of event, like when you tease doing the Phoenix Saga in a movie, they had the same kind of tease in the Ultimate line, and I got excited. And then they fucked it up by trying to do new stuff.
It felt like they did different stuff just to be different.
Yeah.
As much as I have some issues with Mark Millar, Ultimates worked for me on a level because they were limited in scope.
Yeah.
And there was... it was different, but it still was kind of the Avengers at heart. It was a more modern, more cynical, modern Avengers, but I still feel like it followed some of the beats in a more modern sense.
Beats and the overall sense of what a Avengers story should be was there.
Right. Whereas less so Spider-Man, more so X-Men Avengers, or X-Men and FF and the later stuff, where these books just become... They're like, well, we're going to have... It was like Wolverine, like Professor X's kid or some nonsense, and then they ended up...
No, they turned Wolverine into Cable.
Cable, that's what they did. They made him Cable. And you're like, well, why? Like, why? This is no story here. This isn't interesting. And then they just... Well, we'll forget about Ultimates 3, and they really went off the rails. So...
Hey, but then we got Ultimatum.
But for me, that is
like I
where...
said, let's just forget that.
Where I love the Ultimate line at first, because... Just like with TV shows, just like with movies and all this stuff, I am totally on board with building up two big things. Same with like going back to Heroes Reborn. When they were doing the whole Coming of Galactus stuff, I was absolutely on board because I don't feel the need to be like, oh, that story's been done so much as I don't mind getting a chance to sort of retell it in a slightly different way and hitting the same beats. Because there's plenty of people who haven't read that story before, and the way that they tell stories now is so different than the way they told stories back then that it does feel a certain amount of sort of fresh to it.
I have a conversation with one of our customers on a regular basis, and we bring up this example a lot. Star Trek. It was a Star Trek Into Darkness. That's the second one, right? The one with Khan.
Yeah.
In the marketing for that movie, sorry if I spoil Star Trek Into Darkness for everyone here.
Well, you're doing them a favor because
in the marketing for that movie, they were like, "Who is Benedict Cumberbatch?" And they're like, "It's not Khan. Who is he?" And I'm like, "Well, okay, I could be Khan, but if it's not Khan, then I don't know who it is." Well, no, he's Khan. Okay, Khan is meaningless to this James Kirk because he never met Khan. Originally, the audience has never met Khan, so this version of Khan. So the references and the callbacks are meaningless. Killing, you flip the script and you kill Kirk instead of Spock at the end, but you know he's not going to be dead by the end of the movie. Whereas in Star Trek II, you probably assumed he was going to come back, but that was it fit the story well. Had they never brought Spock back, it would have been a good ending for that character.
So the only reason you could assume that they were going to bring him back was because of the way they did the ending with the planet. If you take that out of there, everybody would have assumed he was dead.
Right. That's how I sometimes feel. That it kind of feels like the later Ultimate books, where you're trying to kind of retell a story, but you're missing the core things that make that story matter the first time. And to connect this to DC, doing a year one retelling of every character, while it could be interesting, and I wouldn't be opposed to it, like when they did the Earth 1 graphic novel line, that is, at the end of the day, not going to replace the main line. It might be a better quality on some technical levels, but they're not going to ever replace those original foundational stories. They can riff on them, but the changes are usually not stronger than what they are changing.
Like, one of the things that Johns did with both Superman and Green Lantern, and I don't think anybody else, but the whole Secret Origin, like if they wanted to do something like that for 6 months or a year and just sort of do a line-wide...
Year one for everyone.
Yeah. I don't see any... Like, nobody was upset when Johns did the Secret Origin Superman miniseries or the Secret Origin Green Lantern.
No.
I think the only problem with the arc was that it follows immediately after the Sinestro Corps War, so it was sort of like this big, massive thing followed by a much smaller story.
But in general, it was very well accepted.
Yeah.
Especially because it laid seeds of what could come next.
Right. I would think both Marvel and DC have learned their lesson, and there is no plan for a massive relaunch. Now, Marvel still has like 27 number ones in a month, but a lot of those are one-shots and minis and blah, blah, blah. When Marvel was doing a constant reboot every year, every 18 months, that was just, like, it worked the first time and less the second time. But the third time, I'm like, for the love of God, guys, you've got to stop this. Like, we're done. We have to stop this. This is just not sustainable.
So... on Sunday, when you opened up the list of the comics that you've already put the barcodes in, I saw the all new.
My A section exploded because of all the all new titles that Marvel launched in those 2-year time period. Yeah. So there is just so much. And I'm not against new stories. I'm not against new characters. I'm not against reboots when it's necessary. I'm not against reimaginings. You never know when someone's going to do something that's better, right? It can happen. It's the line-wide nature. It worked a couple times. You have to take a long fucking break before you do it again. It worked for Marvel at Heroes Reborn. It worked when they did their first one. Enough time had passed. When they do 3 in a 5-year time period, you completely lose everything. If DC is like, New 52 was huge, Rebirth a little less so, if they do it again, it'll be less so. You need those strong, consistent titles month after month. And you're going to go up and down. You're going to have your anniversaries. You're going to goose it from time to time. We have all the 80th anniversary stuff from DC this year. And again, these are legitimate anniversaries. I would love Marvel to steal this idea and have 50. What are we? 20. We just passed 50th anniversary, so we're be coming up on the 60th of a lot of their characters, right? Spider-Man and Fantastic Four should all be coming up on 60th anniversary.
2023, right? Because when
2021 for
21
for the FF.
FF would be 2021, right? Okay. So if they want to do like a 10 cover $9.99, their best creators in the industry 60th anniversary special for FF, I'm all fucking there, right? That's a legitimate anniversary. I mean, no, I made fun of it before, but Deadpool 900 is not real. That's fake. Marvel Comics 1000 is not real. That's fake. Don't do that. Give us the actual celebrate the actual history of these characters. So I have no problem with what DC's doing with these. They want to reboot the entire line for DC's 86th anniversary? Like, there's no fucking point. Maybe get 100, and they want to do something. Man, I don't know, maybe. But these characters have lasted this long.
You lost me at Star Trek Into Darkness.
just right off, just
like,
over.
I think don't even get like an example of how to make every wrong decision you could possibly make in storytelling.
Yeah,
I can't. You could teach a class and use that as
I had like serious conversations with people. I was like, I mean, he must be Gary Mitchell, I guess.
Well, that
right?
would have made more sense.
Yeah, you're like, it just doesn't make. Okay, he's Khan.
Or another person from Khan's crew.
Yeah.
And in this timeline, the rest of them died, and he lived.
Sure.
Anything.
Sure.
Anything. Okay. Anyway, we can keep moving.
So I, in general, like Into Darkness. I don't dislike that movie, actually.
There are fun moments, but the Khan stuff.
It is well made.
Yeah.
The special effects are good.
Like I said about like New 52 books and the technically competent material, but there is storytelling problems.
It's one of those things where I would have probably liked it better if they had taken the... Because, I mean, they even have moments in it where you start to question, is Khan actually a good guy in this story? And if they had just fully committed to Khan's in the right, and that's what needs to be resolved, I think it would have worked better.
Yes, that's a huge if.
And at that point, they should have just marketed it like this is Khan and left the big surprise to be, but he's a good guy.
You're cool. I'd be fine with that.
We don't need to go down the rabbit hole.
Well, so much
Craig
fun.
Anderson, next time we have an Ask Me Anything, send in a question about Star Trek Into Darkness, and we'll...
Well, we do have one more story from C2E2, and that is we finally have the reveal of Marvel's big summer X-Men crossover. I thought I had read originally that it was later in the year. I think I may have said that in the last podcast, like, oh, they're going to do like a big winter crossover. No, it's summer. It is called X of Swords, or possibly 10 of Swords.
Now a word from Bryce Larson. This sounds awesome, and anybody who doesn't think it can go fuck themselves.
I'm in for all 15 parts. Yeah. Wait, 15 parts? I don't buy 9 of these titles. So it is
Fallen Angels is coming back.
The 15-part event will start in the summer. 10 mutants will wield 10 legendary swords from the Marvel Universe.
Are there even... I saw this, and I was trying to think, like, are there actually 10 swords in the Marvel Universe?
How many people are having flashbacks to Fear Itself and the Hammers?
And the Hammers, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to hell.
Thanks.
So
that's where my brain went.
So Jonathan Hickman's writing it along with Teenie Howard from Excalibur. So I don't know if the other writers from the line are contributing, so I'm assuming everyone's just writing their own books. This is going through the titles, so we just don't have...
By then we're having 15 X-Men titles?
Yeah, we don't have a ton on the what they're doing, but...
Are they going to be polybagged with a trading card?
We've had quite a few comments, because we're supposed to have a lot of X-Men talk today, because it's Bryce, and we're going to appease him. We did get a lot of comments about the X-Men. But I have got, over the last couple of weeks on Twitter, and I've had my own response to our sales, a pretty sharp drop-off on the sales of the X-Men books, including the main title. We have a question about that, so maybe we'll hold off and talk about that for a bit.
Charlie, I'm not going to put you on the spot with this. I'm just going to ask you yes or no, okay? So not actually doing it, just a yes or no. Could you right now write down 10 Marvel Universe swords on a piece of paper? Just
No.
off the top here? Okay.
No.
Well,
in fact, I'm just sitting here going, and they fuck up the name. If you can't figure out a way to put a X in there properly...
I mean, there must be an Excalibur, right? Yeah. There is Excalibur.
There's the Black Knight sword.
Okay.
There's an Iron Sword.
There's the sword that Magic had.
Oh, she's got her like...
But she'll have that.
Yeah,
so that counts as one.
She'll have that sword.
Okay, there's 4? 3?
Didn't the Silver Samurai have one or quest for one?
Is his sword special?
Does that count?
I don't think his original one was, but I think there was a story where he was trying to recover.
Yeah, there was a Wolverine story.
What's funny is Magic has a sword on the cover here, and it's not her sword. Wolverine's got
so we don't count Magic's sword.
Wolverine's got a sword because Wolverine needs a sword.
Okay.
He's got 6 swords.
Oh,
7.
we have seen plenty of stories with Wolverine going all samurai.
I know. Ooh, Cyclops has a
But
lightsaber.
it doesn't just say they have swords. It says 10 legendary swords from the Marvel Universe.
There's like 40 swords on the cover of this book. Like, what the fuck? Like, there's not 10
See,
swords.
That's how they're hiding the 10 special swords. They're giving everybody a sword so nobody knows which one to attack for the special sword.
I mean, Psylocke, Captain Britain, and Cyclops like straight up have lightsabers, so that's kind of neat.
Maybe the Swordmaster has them all.
Blind Professor X, who's you took off your mask in that one issue. Sure thing, you're Professor X, you fucking lying piece of shit.
Oh, there's the Odin sword.
He's just this is the same thing as Mysterio and Spider-Man Far From Home, where it's like Mysterio's a good guy. Yeah, sure he is. Okay. Professor X, take your goddamn helmet off for that one page. Get out of my face. So, you guys read that issue? I think I'm up to the 6s on the X-Men books.
So the main X-Men title I'm current on.
Yeah.
So there's the Ebony Blade.
That's the Black Knight, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see if there's any.
What did you Google?
Weapons, Marvel.
I'm sure Apocalypse has some like scimitar-ass looking sword on this cover here, so I'm sure.
It's
It's okay. They're going to they're going to recover
blade?
this Conan sword. It's just going to
Conan?
be.
Oh yeah, they'll bring Conan into this because Conan is in every other book these days.
There's the Muramasa blade.
Yeah, I mean that's a real thing.
That's the one from Wolverine.
Yep.
Just trying to Excalibur.
Yeah.
If only we were live on camera.
I know. Hey. Wasn't Mjolnir a sword at one point?
Wasn't
No.
Sure.
Any event.
yeah.
So there are swords.
Exoswords
Yes.
crossing over between every
Odin
X-Men.
sword.
If any reader or listener knows 10 Marvel Universe legendary blades,
There's the Necro sword.
I don't even know what that is.
I'm just trying to think if there's any other like
Thor.
big X-Men event that wasn't like Extinction, Executioners. Like
Yeah.
they messed up the title.
Well, if 10 of swords could relate to the tarot card as well, right? And that
Yeah, but in that tarot card, there's a person like dead with sword. I believe with 10 swords in their back.
Right. Who gets
So
who gets
maybe
killed?
that's the end of the story. Is the villain that it requires stabbing him, like in
10
Omen?
times.
You have to kill with all the blades at the same time
There
for
you
it to
go.
work.
There you go. We'll find out. X-Men's getting their big crossover.
Well, you can read it for all of us, Charlie.
So
and
none of you have
tell us
read
what
issue
happens.
7 of X-Men?
I mean, Charlie said he's read all of them. So
The Crucible one?
Yes.
Yeah, that one was weird.
Is there any issue that's not like
This is true.
they're all one-off stories that have neat aspects to them? Like at least the Mystique one felt like they could revisit that story as something bigger. Most of these other ones
in
are just
X-Force?
no. In the main X-Men title.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember that one. Like, for me, I like the one where they were negotiating with the, and stuff
But
was going on.
it still feels like one-off stories.
Yeah.
It still feels like we're still spending a lot of time just being like, look at what the world's like now.
Yeah, I'm
and
just
not
getting really
enough-
tired of seeing mutants burst out and they're naked in front of everybody. Like, why?
well,
because it's a cult.
This is true.
We're
The
gonna get-
X-Men is officially a cult.
we're gonna get to some questions here, but like I said, I know we have a couple comments here about the X-Men books, so we'll see those in a second.
Horticulture.
Ed Moreno wants to know, where did Toby go? C2E2. Toby went to Europe, but I have no idea where he is now. He messages me randomly. Is he back?
He's back.
Is he? Okay, he doesn't tell me anything. I have no idea.
I think he went to.
Don't
was-
spoil. Don't spoil. He's going to want to tell everyone.
He went to.
He's going to not tell me he wants to talk about it on the podcast. Assume I can read his mind. Come here. We're going to talk about all our topics for the week. He's going to say nothing. While I'm doing the outro, he's going to say, hey, by the way, I didn't get to talk about my stuff. Passive-aggressively get mad at me, and then sit there and go on for about 25 minutes
Could I just
after
sum
the end
it
of the
up with,
podcast.
"Fuck you, Ryan Higgins"?
Yeah, this is exactly what's going to happen. This is exactly what's going to happen. If Toby's here, why the hell isn't he here? Like, where is he? Whatever. We'll hear about his European vacation when he comes back. Tyler Willits.
Maybe it's like an actual European vacation.
I don't know what the hell he did. He didn't tell. I mean, he told me like one or two things, but I don't know what else he was doing. We actually do want to hear all about it, Toby. But tell me you want to talk about it, or just start the podcast with your vacation. I want to
He
hear all
could
about
do a 0.5.
No. Tyler Willett says, do you have characters that when you think about them, a certain artist's rendition is what you always go to? For me, I think the best version of She-Hulk is done by John Byrne. For others, Emma Frost by Chris Anka or Terry Dodson, especially the Terry Dodson one I could see. Green Arrow by Phil Hester and Andy Parks. I mean, I'm just Mike Grell for Green Arrow.
Yeah.
I always see
agree
Mike
with you on
Grell.
that, yeah.
Batman, Bruce Timm. I just
Harley for sure. Bruce.
I just
Timm,
think I go
but
Jim Lee
Batman-
when I think Batman, like because it's all the promotional images, all the stuff. We have the poster here at the store, like for modern,
The ears are long enough.
Yeah. Who do you always?
Kurt Swan Superman
Yeah,
for me, just
yeah.
because I was just bombarded with it for
Yeah.
my entire childhood.
Dan Jurgens, Booster Gold. Always Dan Jurgens.
Yeah, he's done so much of it. I mean, this is just kind of like a best of the people that worked on these titles.
For
but,
me, the X-Men is Paul Smith or Byrne.
yeah. I think
Superman. I think Ross.
I'm always more Simonson than Kirby when it comes to Thor. I like Kirby's Thor stuff, really neat, but there's something about Simonson's so angular, and I really like that art style. And I feel like I don't know. I kind of feel like more modern. I think that connects to more modern creators than the Kirby stuff.
So
They don't get as bubbly.
when I think Kirby, I always think more like Galactus or the Fourth World, like that.
Yeah.
That's where I think Kirby.
Yeah. I mean, I think like FF. It's hard to not think Kirby.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of the DC characters are Garcia Lopez
Oh yeah.
because it's not only comics but bed sheets and action figures and
I think we've talked about this. There's been like significant push online to get that style guide actually published. That thing is incredible if you've seen pages. So
Didio on Facebook was a champion of that idea.
I love it. I don't know why. Like, why the hell wouldn't
It's
you?
free money.
It's free money, and it's not their current marketing thing.
No.
So it's not like some weird.
And you paid for it in like 1980, so it's not like you're having
yeah.
to hire someone to do it.
Yeah, can you imagine if they published like all like the Secret Wars like design docs and all the Super Friends like Kirby's who did Super
Alex
Friends?
Toth.
Or Alex Toth,
Yeah.
sorry, all the Alex Toth like Super Friends designs. And, I mean, they've been in some of the books, but like here is like the archive that we have. That'd be neat.
Yeah.
Travis, well, he's got some. He wants to know which X titles is Bryce actually interested in, and the answer is all of them, whether he's reading them or not. And is everyone excited for Death Metal? Yeah, I'm now very excited for Death Metal if it is going to somehow seemingly relate to the events coming up. So
I'm excited for Death Metal, but I'm not sure I'm not more excited for the one shots coming out of because
we don't know
They haven't
specifics,
announced
but
what the one shots are going to be, but I love the one shots for Dark Knight Metal.
Yep.
The Metal one shots were great. The Tales of the Dark Multiverse one shots were great. Like
I would expect they will do a very similar rollout with limited crossovers, but very important.
Yeah.
So
drop that first appearance in another book.
I'm going to make a confession here. I'm neutral on Death Metal right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
that's
But
fine.
I will confess to this, and everybody can come back at me with this later. I can't believe I'm about to say this.
Batmaned out?
No. I think my excitement level, my interest level is slowly but surely rising like a tea kettle for Empire.
So
I am legitimately interested in Empire.
So we sent out for the 2 one-shots for the Avengers one-shot and for the FF one-shot to all the subscribers, and I think I only had 1 or 2 people drop them. And I added all our Avengers and FF subscribers to Empire, and I again, not the minis, not all the bull crap because it's endless.
Just the mains.
Yeah, but the main book. And we had almost no one drop it. Now, clearly that may change as it gets closer to publication. But that's a good sign. That's a good sign that I've once or twice I've done this, and I've had a lot of replies like, no, I don't want that. But if this is like their legitimate like bi-year, because it seems like Marvel's done, like they had absolute Carnage before, right? Now we're kind of rolling to this. It seems like kind of a yearly like one actually important event.
like everybody can come back at me. I've been burned by Marvel so many times on these freaking events, but this is material that they're drawing from that I really like.
Yeah. It's Kree Skrull War. Yeah. It's Captain Marvel.
Yes,
it's like OG Captain Marvel.
Bring it. I'm ready.
I mean, and it's Dan Slott and Al Ewing, so it's it's two of Marvel's better creators.
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful.
Isn't the art from Hawks and Pox? I can't think of the artist.
Yeah.
Pepe Larraz is doing one of the Empire.
Maybe, one of the specials. I don't remember.
Or they have bookend books.
Yeah.
I think he's doing those.
Okay.
Alpha and Omega?
I don't know what they're called.
Anyway, there's my confession.
Yeah, no, I don't want these things to suck.
No,
I want them all to be great.
No.
When Infinity Wars came out, I was like, okay, you got Thanos, this could be really good. And then and here's the warps, and I'm like, no, fuck, no, please, no, no, I never. Like the book was okay, but
not warps.
No, those are terrible. And Absolute Carnage was okay. Like, it was okay. I'm just not into Venom.
We got Scream out of that one, right?
Not into, if the one subscriber that buys that book. Hawks and Box was good, but stuff that came after it's not so good. So, there's good elements to it, but to these events from the last couple of years, but a lot of them haven't kind of quite nailed it long term.
Honestly, I'm really just hoping we get Snyder on the podcast again, because I'll be the first one to admit my enjoyment for Metal also went up after hearing him talk about it and why he was even when we started with Williamson talking about Flash for that's my enjoyment for a lot of these books and a lot of the choices and being able to read in certain things that I would not have picked up on otherwise. We've had some very successful
wink wink.
We've had some very successful interviews on here that have improved my enjoyment of books, which is great.
Yeah, that's what we want. They have a lot of events, and
plus you've talked to Slop before. You should get him on here to tell us about Empire.
I would not. I would totally like to have more people on here. Yeah. We just haven't had. I've had a couple hey, we'd like to get them on, but it just hasn't worked yet.
No, I know. I was legitimately surprised how much more I enjoyed Metal and Flash and that stuff after we talked to the creators on it.
Yeah. What was the next question here? This is all you, Charlie.
Patreon?
This is all you.
Okay.
This is from Chris, our good friend Chris Bunch. He says, X-Men vs. the Apocalypse, the 12 has a new omnibus out.
Mm-hmm.
If I love the X-Men and I'm still catching up on their long history, should I pick it up or check out something else, like the new paperback version of Operation Zero Tolerance that just came out?
Get the omnibus.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's your favorite, huh?
So, I'm a big fan of Cable and Apocalypse, if you haven't heard.
No.
I there are aspects of what came after that book that aren't as good, but I really liked Apocalypse the 12 and how they redid some of the Horsemen and it was strong. I liked it. And I have the omnibus. It's beautiful. There you go.
You're asking Charlie to tell you no on buying an omnibus?
That heavily features Cable and Apocalypse?
Yeah, I mean, it's still an omnibus, Charlie. Name an omnibus you would not recommend to somebody.
I can walk around the store and name quite a few, probably.
From Josh, he says, I've read Dark Knight's Metal and No Justice. Is there any other required reading to prep for Death Metal?
Justice League.
And basically, Snyder's entire Justice League run.
Yeah, that Justice League run of Snyder's just kind of stops.
Yeah, it probably was supposed to pick up the week after in Death Metal #1. I think just Capullo had a maybe not so subtle post on Twitter a few weeks ago. He's like, well, those scripts finally started to roll in, so I've got 15-hour work days ahead of me. Yeah. So,
but that was about. I mean, Snyder was dealing with his sons.
Yeah. I mean, sure. It's understandable. It was understandable.
Because right now we're blinded by the light in that book, and we're wanting to know what's on the other side.
He also said, if anyone is interested, I'll trade a complete set of the X-Men #1 variants from 1991 for copies of Hell Arisen #3. Oh, that's a good trade. Probably worth about the same. Actually, those X-Men #1 go for a couple bucks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You can get a second print, right?
yeah, you can. The second prints are sold out too. Maybe they'll do a third. Chris Lockhart wants to know if you were the CEO of Disney now that Bob Iger stepped down, what would you do with Star Wars and Marvel? That's a big question.
Companies or
what would you do with You're the CEO of Disney. What's the plan for Star Wars and Marvel?
Well, keep in mind, before any of us answer, there's the creative answer, and then there's the answering to the shareholders answer. So those are not going to necessarily go together.
So, I mean, given the track record with Marvel, I wouldn't. Well, Marvel Comics, I would probably do something different than if you're talking about Marvel as like a property. Marvel as a property with the TV shows, movies, that kind of stuff. I wouldn't touch a damn thing. They're under the correct creative control as it is right now.
Yeah.
Comic book, I'm sure I would want to review certain things and try and course correct some of it. But Star Wars, though, I kind of feel like they've had some very good success with what they've done on sort of Disney Plus from what I've heard, and the fact that they're bringing back some stuff that I was very excited for. The movies, though, I honestly don't know what you do from here.
I think you take a nice long break.
Yeah, probably.
The TV shows are fun. Do those. Those are okay.
Yeah.
You can have all the TV shows you want.
Yeah.
I don't dislike the new movies. Last Jedi aside, but
yeah,
just nice.
Under
long
my
break.
regime, you won't see Star Wars in a movie theater before 2025 at the soonest.
I mean, I don't think you're going to see anything anytime soon.
On TV, like Clone Wars, the last season, The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Cool. We can live there. Let's just let that. Let's let people miss it. That's the point.
Yeah.
I would probably look to greenlight something on Disney Plus, picking up where Solo left.
Yeah,
you don't even necessarily need to pick up Solo's story, but there were characters and story.
There's stuff between Revenge and A New Hope or Rogue One that you can explore.
Yeah, but I would definitely, because they had a great tease at the end of Solo, and regardless of the success in movie theaters, it was a fairly well-reviewed and handled movie and had plenty of story left to tell. I just would shift it over to like Disney Plus and just make it some mini series.
I think there's so many good stories out there that they can adapt for Marvel, for the movies, for the TV shows, and characters that haven't. I think Marvel's solid at this point. I think you just go where you go. I think 2 to 3 movies a year seems to work very well. Unless you see a softening of it, I don't see why they should cut back on that.
Okay, I take it back. I would greenlight a X-Force movie series.
Especially with the X-Men, right? I mean, that seems to be a very strong future for them in the FF. Those are very good characters they can draw from. But I would probably take a nice break at some point down the road because we're just going to have to reboot and relaunch these characters. They'll have a new Iron Man. They'll have a new Cap, right? I mean, eventually. So I think I don't think there's much other choice, right? They're going to have to recast those characters, right?
Long term, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, as you said, there's plenty of characters and story content they haven't gotten to yet. So
Right.
It can still survive quite a while before they have to really do anything.
For Star Wars, the comics of the comics. Like I don't, they're marketing, they're making kids stuff, they're expanding the audience to other fields. Like all that's great. For Star Wars, I mean, I think Star Wars feels more special. Like you have to do these things. Like I thought you have a Star Wars movie every year, it's going to be amazing. Well, maybe the audience just isn't there for that. Why are they there for 3 Marvel movies a year and not Star Wars? I don't know. It's just a different, just different audience. I mean, even if these movies were amazing, I still don't know that I would want 3 Star Wars movies a year, right? I mean,
no, but the alternating one main, one spin-off sounded like a good idea at the time, but I don't know. There's something
Yeah.
odd about the way Star Wars was handled compared to Marvel, because I feel like each Marvel movie, to a degree, feeds on keeping your excitement level up.
Right.
Like, even when it's not the big epic Avengers stuff, each of the sort of the building blocks to get you there keeps sort of amping up your energy and your excitement for what's going to come next.
Yeah.
Star Wars, the one-off movies didn't really build up the excitement level for the next movie. And then, as you said, with like The Last Jedi, and I know you and I kind of had issues with that, it really kind of made me hit a wall in terms of my excitement level.
Yeah.
And I needed the break between that and the next movie to even sort of re-spark the interest in.
Well, there was also the shift in the release schedule, because we had Last Jedi come out in December, and then right in April we had Solo come out, which was, I mean, a lot of people were like, this is just too soon for...
To me, it doesn't even... Solo would have been fine for me if it wasn't for my reaction to Last Jedi. Like, Last Jedi is why I needed a break.
Yeah. But again, it's because it came so close. I mean, it was 4 months. And
yeah.
Boom, you have another Star Wars movie.
But the same kind of thing can be said with like the Marvel movies. If the quality stays up there and such, I'm not about to be like, 4 months, another Marvel movie, I think I'm going to skip this one. Like, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'll be the first one to admit, if they had if they had a Marvel movie that I reacted as strongly to in some ways as I did Last Jedi, I'm not sure I would jump at the one that comes out 4 months later. Like, it's just the nature of it.
Yeah. All right, we got another question here from Christopher. He says, hey guys, my wife and I are headed to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Scotland for the next couple weeks. In addition to seeing all the historic sites and castles, we plan on hitting up some of the comic book shops in Dublin, Belfast, and Edinburgh. Do any of you know of any good books or graphic novels or creators that are centric to over there that one would have little to no knowledge of over here? I know it's a long shot, but if anyone would know, you guys are on top of my list. Thanks in advance. I do not know the Irish comic book scene. However,
the people that do.
If you are going to a comic book store in Ireland, you are going to Big Bang. If you are going to Big Bang, you are going to see John and Bruno and JP and all the guys over there. Guys and girls over at Big Bang Comics.
That's in Dublin.
It's in Dublin, yeah. Tell them you listen to the Comic Conspiracy podcast, and it's
and hopefully they don't kick you out.
And Comics Conspiracy is the best store in America. And tell them I'll buy them a drink next time I'm over there. They are really big into Irish and UK creators. I cannot tell you many of them. And Declan Shavley, He's local to them, so I'm assuming he's Irish.
Liam Sharp?
But he's here, right?
Yeah,
Liam Sharp's here now, yeah.
You can visit the Morrison Castle on the Scottish Loch while you're over
there. But definitely ask those guys if you're looking for some Irish creators. On the Scottish end, I don't know many, but and Mark Miller, Grant Morrison. So others, there's got to be others from that time, from that 2000 AD time, but. At least we know those ones. So check them out. Let's see from Craig Anderson. He says this episode will be all X-Men. Sorry, this is written when we thought Bryce was still going to be here. Since this episode will be all X-Men, lots of Bryce, and an incredible amount of crosstalk. What's your favorite X-Books?
And it's been mostly free of all of that stuff.
Yeah. What's your favorite X-Books crossover event of all time? And is it better or worse than Hawks and Pox? What is your favorite X-Men crossover? I mean, it's easy for me to say Executioner Song because that was kind of like the big one when I was younger. I'm surprised you don't say Age of Apocalypse. More?
No, Executioner Song with Strife and Cable and
And the creative talent at the time was like Jim Lee and Silvestri and
Jim Lee was off during Executioner Song. He wasn't doing those, was he? No, I think Jim Lee was. Oh, he was on the main. Well, no, he was already off the main book too. I don't think he was. I can't remember who. I think it was that Silvestri, right?
I couldn't tell you.
On those.
I really liked that story. I really liked all the covers for that story. It heavily featured Cable.
Was it? What's the other one I'm thinking about, Jim Lee? The earlier one.
What? I mean, that would have
Give me
been
a second.
prior. When Jim Lee was doing X-Men, what crossover would he have been working on? I mean, that was kind of
Wasn't there
pre-crossovers.
Extinction Agenda? Wasn't he in there?
Yeah. Oh, Extinction Agenda is really good too.
Yeah.
Those New Mutants issues. I like those a lot. Yeah, the more modern day X-Men crossovers have been okay. Like, there have been some that are fun. I know you guys are fans of Second Coming. Is that Bryce? Or is that Bryce?
Messiah Complex?
Messiah Complex, sorry. Yeah,
but that was like a trilogy of...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Messiah Complex, War, and then Second Coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Zach.
All of it is the best.
Well, and are those better than House of Powers? I mean, they're different.
Days of Future Past.
They're better.
Well, Charlie's throwing the gauntlet.
Oh, damn, Charlie.
Hell, they have young Cable in those. Fuck those.
Yeah, has Cable popped up in this yet?
A real Cable? I don't think
Real
so.
Cable has not been in a comic book since he... Well, not a in-continuity comic book since he died.
Zach wants to know, does Brock have a medical condition where he's only able to start talking when Ryan is mid-sentence?
Fuck yeah.
Smiley face.
Hell yeah.
Look, there's just a lot of crosstalk in this podcast. I mean, that's just...
Wait, did Craig ask that question?
No, Zach.
Oh,
Zach.
sorry.
Yeah. Yep. I talk a lot. Brock has stuff he wants to say.
You
He's
interrupt us all the time.
He's got lots of terrible jokes he wants to throw out.
Exactly.
So it's fine. Just talk when you can. Just get words in edgewise whenever you can. His real question, this is Kevin. This is your question. If you could interview any comic creator, past or present, alive or dead, who would it be, and what one question would you ask? One question, alive or dead.
Oh, see, that eliminates a lot of people just because, like, I wouldn't say Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Because Stan Lee gave a million interviews.
Yeah,
I would want to talk to somebody who you couldn't access his.
I mean, would it be Ditko? I mean, just because he's so reclusive.
Yeah.
and-
So assume in this magical premise, assuming that if I could, Ditko would actually open up and talk,
and they would actually answer
then
you.
I would choose Ditko.
What question would you ask him?
What happened?
Yeah, maybe I would
Very
say if
open-ended.
Ditko were still around today and had his faculties, I would say when you look back at your relationship with Stan and how it ended, what are your feelings now with perspective of 40 years or however many? I don't know. I don't know exactly when he left Marvel. Late 60s. Okay, however many decades. What do you think back now? What went wrong in your opinion?
I don't know. Who I'd talk to.
So
That's a good question.
I'd probably talk to Kirby, but the thing for me is I wouldn't necessarily want to arrive with a question. I just want to have a conversation and see where it goes, and
Just like hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just see what I
podcast
learn
it.
from having a open-ended conversation.
So
with
your
one.
question would be, sup?
What was your favorite X-Men crossover, Jack?
No, it's what's your secret origin?
There you go.
No, I mean, even if it's just sort of talking Galactus and the Fantastic Four or talking New God, like most of the times when I've been in the same place with the creator, I just like to talk to him. I don't necessarily have to go there with like super prepared questions. If they comment on a shirt I'm wearing or just whatever's on their table, something will come to me to talk about. It's
Oh, well, geez, Charlie, yeah. But I mean, that premise was like a question you I was reading that, I was hearing that question as you are prepared to interview them.
Yeah.
If we're just hanging out at a bar or whatever, then that's a totally different conversation.
But as one of my co-hosts on another podcast referenced to me recently, like he's always arrives super prepared and organized, and I always arrive for the podcast just gonna wing it, just gonna cover it because I'm more comfortable that way.
Yeah.
Final comment from Mr. Rama, #1 Hellboy fan. He says, follow up about my Hellboy question. Hellboy has indeed ended. The miniseries coming out that we were talking about are just untold stories. So I'm assuming this is kind of like when Wolverine died and there was immediately like 4 Wolverine books that, I mean, Wolverine wasn't really in, but like,
No, I saw a whole thread on this just because I haven't read all the Hellboy stuff that I own. I've read some of it, but not all of it. But because Hellboy has such a prolific life, they're able to time periods to tell new Hellboy stories in.
So there's new Hellboy books still coming out. That's what you're telling me. Okay. I mean, Hellboy books are still coming out. Like, untold stories, but they're still new Hellboy.
They have already...
Yeah.
Hellboy in Hell was the end.
Right.
Because he's now in hell.
But
fortunately, you can tell an infinite amount of stories up until that point. So.
Exactly.
And if you throw in another like multiverse of Hellboys.
Oh, there you go. All right, a couple questions on Twitter. We're going to hit these rapid fire. Get out of here. Scott says, do you guys stock any of DC's kids' books? Like the new line, like Dear Justice League, Superman of Smallville, Diana, Princess of the Amazons, or any of the Super Sons books. I only recently learned they're putting out a few of these. And we totally carry them all. Yep, they sold pretty well, too. I know they just went back to second print on the Diana, Princess of the Amazons. They sold 200,000 copies of that book, which is fucking humongous. Yeah. So clearly most of those are not going to comic book stores. A lot of those are going to Scholastic and the bookstore stuff. So, or the school book fairs, but that's exactly what this is about, right? Yeah.
A rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah,
get more eyeballs on more comic-related product.
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, I would not want these to become the comic books that are coming out every month. I prefer the monthly superhero aimed at a older audience titles. But there should be we have Wonder Woman, we have what's that called? Princess of the Amazons, and we have Wonder Woman Dead Earth. That's like all three. You hit every age group in that, and it's all Wonder Woman, and they're all very different from each other.
Well, you don't really hit the 20-somethings Wonder Woman. You know where she's partying.
Ow, it's the main.
So,
see what about the bad jokes?
Separate from,
suck it.
I mean, I could see Dead Earth and the younger Wonder Woman. I would assume both of those have more leg in terms of shelf life, meaning because they're not targeted towards the Wednesday goer, you don't need to necessarily focus so much on, did I sell this many on Wednesday?
Well, and look, you have a comic book which is 20 pages. You have a graphic novel which is 100-some-odd pages. So let's take Wonder Woman sells 30,000 copies. You take 6 of those. You're at 180,000 copies. You're at 200,000 copies of the Wonder Woman book. I mean, we're kind of... It's apples and oranges, but I mean, I think we're not like so out of the ballpark for what these books are selling in the direct market. It's just a different format.
No, I'm just more thinking like, as you said, there's all these different books, and like some of what's coming out nowadays is definitely aimed towards different age groups and stuff, like the Wonder Twins book and like that kind of stuff.
Oh, Wonder Twins is so good. Wonder Twins is good. Dial H is good.
I do. Because I've always noticed the shelf life of a lot of the books that were aimed towards kids in the shop, even with the old location, it didn't really matter how old the book on the shelf was.
Yeah.
Like if somebody was coming in for a Sonic book or a My Little Pony book or a Simpsons book, most of the time they kind of had an idea of what issues they had at home, and they were just looking for something they didn't already have at home. It wasn't like they were looking for...
specific
issue number this. It was just, I have these issues.
Right.
What's an issue I don't have?
Right. Giant Asian Man says, in light of the punchline idiocy, who's the most canon significant new comic book character to be introduced by the big two in the last 20 years? Not your personal favorite, but objectively the most important. For Marvel, I think it's Miles Morales. It's not even close, but for DC, I don't know. Damian Wayne?
See, I'm frustrated with saying in the last 20 years because that means I'd have to pay attention to
2000 to now. I mean, I think Marvel.
I blink and 10 years go by.
I think for Marvel, Miles is a pretty good choice. I don't know that there's too many other characters that have, especially with Spider-Verse, that have that level of success. I mean, I think Damian's a really good choice. There have been really good takes on other characters, but Damian is. I mean, technically a new creation. It's inspired by Son of the Demon.
Yeah.
But it's that didn't really like. It's unclear.
His first appearance was in the past 20 years.
Yeah. Well, maybe. That's sort of
the character of Damien.
Right. It was created by Grant Morrison.
Yes.
That is a new thing.
Yes.
The origin of that character goes back much longer, but it wasn't a character. So,
I mean, I really like a lot of the other Lantern cores that John's created.
I mean, Batman Who Laughs.
The Lantern... Batman Who Laughs, give it a couple of years. I mean, he's a very strong villain.
But,
If you want to go the Lantern core... Like the Rainbow Lanterns, I would give you that over Damien as just a massive addition to the DC universe.
Yeah,
I was thinking Damien because he's crossed over into other media.
Mm-hmm. But
the
Lanterns have too.
Have they used those rainbow lanterns?
Yeah.
I know the red, but have they used all those colors?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
okay. I mean,
on the Green Lantern show.
They had the Green Lantern show. Yeah. I mean, Sinestro's gets the yellow ring, the actual like yellow Sinestro core costume in the Green Lantern movie, and they used him in the other animated series stuff too.
Yeah.
Not just the Green Lantern animated series. So, I mean, I think Miles and Damian have been in more stuff than maybe short of the Green Lantern cartoon, but. Tim's Corner Comics asks, it's Strange Wednesday. Which do you think will move better at your shop? Strange Adventures from DC and Tom King, Mitch Gerrits, and Doc Shanner, or Strange Adventure by the Marvel comic?
No, Strange Academy.
A Strange Academy by...
Who cares?
Who's writing that?
Well, Ryan's already tipped his hand on the answer to this.
And
I was going to say, the number of copies on the shelf has already tipped the answer.
Yeah.
So I ordered more copies of the blank variant cover for Strange Adventures #1 than all all covers of Strange Academy combined.
There's one copy of Strange Academy on the shelf.
And that is actually because I did underorder it, because we did get quite a few last-minute additions to it, but not as many as we got of the blank cover of Strange Adventure #1. That does not include the main two covers of that book. I ordered more copies of Strange Adventure #1 than I think my entire shelf stock of all Marvel comics this week. So that's shelf stock. That doesn't include subscription, right? Yes, Strange Adventures will be our best-selling comic of the week. They'll be in our top 100 for the year, no question asked.
And that's because Ryan will look down on you if you come into the shop and don't buy it.
It's funny to think back on a time when, if you said to someone in a comic book store or conversation, I really like Mr. Miracle, people are like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that character, or from the Justice League.
Yeah.
And now everyone knows him.
Yeah.
And that Adam Strange may be on the brink of hitting that level. I mean, Adam Strange, the guy's never had his own. He was in Strange Adventures, obviously, or Mystery in Space, but he's never had a sustained run. Mr. Miracle's had several sustained runs, but was still a niche character.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
This team on Adam Strange,
it worked.
Top 3 creative teams on my personal favorite books of all time. Like, you could not get better.
I still remember our Sunday morning walk to Comic-Con last year. Hey, pretty cool about Strange Adventures. And I'm like, what? Because I'm not checking Twitter at 6 a.m.?
Well, that's what's wrong with you. Yeah. It's con weekend. You have to check Twitter at 6 a.m. Yeah. But nothing against the creative team of Strange Academy for Marvel.
Who's the creative team?
They'll end up in our quarter bin when they're canceled at issue 6. But, I mean... Okay. The Norminator, number one Brock Sager fan, wants to know how long until Marvel or DC have a new all-powerful supervillain named COVID or Corona? Or is that too soon of a question? For them, too soon. They'll never do it. But Comicsgate is calling, man. They've got their villain lined up. They know it. They're going to definitely use that name for something.
It's going to be that Cyberfrog comic.
Oh, yep, probably will. It's super racist. Here we go, one or two more. That's from Dan. He says, comic book characters are very popular, as evidenced by how much money the movies, TV shows, and Underoos make. Yet it seems that comic book sales don't match that level of popularity. Why do you think that is so? What big idea do you have for increasing comic book sales? I mean, that's a big part of it.
People don't read.
Comic books are a weird thing. Like who the fuck? Like, you're weird if you come in here and buy these things. That's kind of odd. Going to a movie is a very normal thing. Watching TV is a very normal thing.
I
mean, I'm obviously joking somewhat,
An
but
adult,
but also not
reading a book with words and pictures.
Well, no,
That's strange.
There's trying to think of the best way to put. So I very rarely see somebody out reading like Batman or Superman, that kind of thing. But the amount of times I've walked by somebody at work reading like Monstrous or some of these other ones, like it is an interesting sort of like subgroup of some books just reach a very different audience, and you see them out places where I kind of feel like certain other titles, I kind of feel like you don't see people like somebody out reading Monstrous. I kind of feel like isn't looked at the same way as somebody out reading Batman. Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is crossover, of course, but they're very different audiences. And I mean, the great thing about comics is there's so many different ways to read it. We had a guy that was in here that got the Dan Klaus, the Artifact book, the thing, fucking gorgeous, thing's humongous, right? And he also bought X-Men. I mean, these crossovers do exist, right?
I guess what I'm saying is like, so I've always taken graphic novels and whatnot on planes to read them, and I don't think I've ever been on a plane and noticed somebody else reading comic books. Like, it's just from...
I have once or twice, but it was always on the tablet.
Yeah. But I always find it interesting because as a huge fan of comic books, if I see somebody reading a graphic novel or something, my eye always kind of like, ooh, I wonder what they're reading. And most of the time when I encounter it, it's some indie book. Like, it's not either of the big two. And I don't know why that is. I don't know. Now, mind you, even like most of my reading is done at home, not necessarily like...
You would think that with billion-dollar franchises, these things would not be maybe seen as, childish or passé, but there is still a little stigma around actually reading a superhero comic book in public.
Part of that is the transition from elementary school to high school. Yeah. Is that when kids are reading in elementary school, it's encouraged that they read as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so reading a graphic novel or a comic book is more encouraged now than it used to be in the school systems. Yeah. But when you transition into middle school, they no longer care.
Well, I think there's also a line between what would be considered something artistic and thought-provoking and like your normal monthly book. Like, you do hear about classes being taught that have like Watchmen on the curriculum and stuff. And I think a lot of indie books kind of fall into that category of people consider them a little more artistic and thought-provoking and that kind of thing.
But even when you're dealing with like English teachers and encouraging of reading, they're not encouraging students to go out and read comic books or graphic novels. That doesn't happen necessarily unless you're a very specific,
like college classes and stuff.
Well, no, some high schools do it too, but like high school is more Mouse or like Watchmen if they can get it approved. But there's a long list of stuff that goes on, and I mean people just are less and less getting behind reading in general. So
one issue is, aside from the content, is his premise was why are there like superhero underwear and stuff and not. Part of it is you have to go to a store that sells comic book. You have to already want a comic book. You're not going to stumble across one in the wild for the most part.
Sure, Barnes & Noble or...
But then you've got to go to the graphic novel section.
But I mean, even then, they have tried to get comics into Walmart, and they've tried to get...
Well, comics have always been somewhere in some fashion. I mean, you go to...
But you're not going to find a spinner rack at the gas station.
No, that's
not
gone.
Anymore.
But you still see Archie sometimes at Safeway or at grocery store checkouts.
But this is not exclusive to comic books. Every $1 million industry has $1 billion licensing deals. Yeah. Licensing is just part of this, and it's so much more easy and casual for people to get into. Not casual, and I'm not saying in a bad way.
It's easier to put on a shirt of Batman than it is to sit there and read a Batman
The amount
story.
of kids that I see that walk into the school next door and people that are coming from the tech companies here to go eat at the restaurant next door. They walk by in a Batman T-shirt, look in the window, and walk right by. Is staggering. And that's not like they hate comic books. They love, but they like the Batman symbol, but they're not going to buy a comic book.
It's not it's an imaginary person. I like Batman movies. I think Batman's cool, and the shirt's cool. Yeah. I'm not really interested in reading comic books.
Right. Yeah. I love Star Trek. I don't read Star Trek novels. It's the same sort of thing, right?
This whole not reading thing, maybe we should bring the book club back.
Well, I mean, even them with the novels and stuff, I feel like Audible has made some of that stuff easier to accept. Like, I'm right there with you. I'm not about to sit down and read a Star Trek or Star Wars novel, but I have definitely perused those sections on Audible to see if there were any particular ones that looked...
Oh, if I had unlimited time, I'd listen to thousands of audiobooks. Like, I love the concept of these audiobooks, especially with like the sound effects and everything. But
the Thrawn books are really good.
Yeah. As I said, it's just one of those things where there's definitely the time commitment aspect to it.
I'm going to answer this one just because it's a really quick question. No More Moutons on Twitter says, can you explain the evolution of Superboy from the Metropolis Kid to Connor Kent? Also, was the Metropolis Kid a proto-hipster? Two words, baby.
Who's the Metropolis Kid?
That's when he came in from Reign of Superman, and he had his own series where he's like in Hawaii and all that. I mean, 2 words, Jeff Johns. That was a hard turn from the cancellation of his series to the launch of Teen Titans when he becomes the T-shirt and jeans wearing Superboy. I mean, if there's another book that is has more explanation, I don't think I ever saw it. He basically was transformed overnight when that Teen Titans series launched because he has this whole connection to the human half of him is Lex Luthor, and that's all John. So.
Yeah, because we jumped from that series to the Jeff Lemire stuff, which is all Connor.
I mean that's way later, but I mean he's
the
whole
that weird New 52 one.
Yeah, no, that's not what he's talking about. The night. I mean, I like that early '90s Superboy. He was kind of fun and kind of funky, but Connor, the Teen Titans Connor Kent, I mean, it's infinitely better character. And the last question, this is the one I was talking about earlier with the X-Men stuff, so we can wrap up on X-Men just the way Bryce would like it. Steven says the X-Men had a rough couple past years. Hawks and Pox had me excited, but now I'm thinking I'd almost rather have what we had for the last 10 years if this is the alternative. Am I alone? Am I crazy? We've said it before. Hawks and Pox were really good. But we're now 6 months in, and I just don't get it. If there was a point that, like, we haven't seen it, there's a bunch of weird world building, which world building's nice, but I don't know where the plot went. None of these books to me, and I've read all of them now through the 6th issue of all of them, so I'm like 1 or 2 back on them, but I mean, I've read through them all. Fallen Angel is an absolute mess. I actually stopped. I did not read number 6 because I could not tell you one thing that happened in that book. It was an absolute disaster of a book. It made no sense. It connected to nothing. It had nothing to do with anything. I just don't know where they're going with anything, and I'm okay if you have stories that are taking your time, but not when you have 10 bi-monthly books that are all taking their time all at the same time.
Yeah.
I just don't know what is happening, where they're going, what the plot is, what the end goal here is. We don't have even the slightest inkling of a story at this point. Where's Moira been in any of this? Where's anything from Hawks and Pox short of the fact
all
that
they've done is they've explored the setting more, but they've not told an actual like cohesive story to like
the one-off X-Men issues have been interesting, but I don't get anything from them. It's like, all right, I mean, Apocalypse, and they're all sitting around talking to like the UN or whatever, and they're kind of badass, but
for
like
good or bad,
where's this going?
Most of the time when you kind of read comics nowadays, you look towards what is this going to be like when it comes out in a trade.
Oh, these would be unreadable.
Yeah, I mean, this is just all over the place when the trade comes out. There's no...
Well, those Dawn of X trades they're doing where they're collecting all the number 1s in a book, all the number 2s in a book, like, It's a fucking what a mess. Who would ever read that?
Yeah.
What a mess. It doesn't work.
X-Force has kind of a coherent story. Like Benjamin Percy's done a decent job.
More than the others. And I haven't read Wolverine #1 yet, and I heard that was actually pretty good. So I'm gonna get to that.
Like X-Force is like an enjoyable. It's like, okay, this is a story. It's telling us what's going on. Like
they're setting up the kind of Black Ops bit, but setting up.
Yeah,
like
no, they've done the stuff. They're telling the story of like Domino's abducted. She's been basically cut up.
Yeah,
to take her powers and all that stuff. But
it's just a random. It's just a random story. It has no tie to. Anything,
it does have tie.
Anything from
you
House
get those
and
Hickman
Powers
insert pages that you don't read.
I don't read those. I don't read the text pages. Yeah. Sorry. I read them for the first.
If they were on Audible, I
read them for the first 2 issues, and I went, "These are all totally pointless," and I didn't, and I stopped reading them. So I read 12 of them, and they all were totally useless. So I just like, fuck it. If there's something important in there, someone will tell me. And I said this. I was like, Hawks and Pox are cool for an alternate universe, and we'll get the real X-Men back at some point, right? And I think that's what's kind of happening is people are like, okay, this was a cool year-long diversion, so where are my regular X-Men again? That's how I feel from some customers, myself included.
I don't even necessarily feel like this was a nice diversion, because I've read a lot of diversions in the X-Men and stuff, like going back to Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
There was actually a story and a build-up and stuff across all those issues, and by the end, they all came together towards sort of resolving that event. This is just more random. There's no cohesive, each issue of X-Men I pick up, I have no clue what the story inside is going to be.
Yeah.
It may be an enjoyable story. I've not read any of the issues of X-Men and been like.
Number 3.
The Horticulture one.
Terrible.
That was the worst comic, I think, ever.
What?
X-Men 3.
I think it is the worst single issue I read last year.
Yeah.
In 2019.
But not ever.
No.
But
I've read Rob Liefeld comics. Come on.
Oh.
But at the end of the day, there's no pitch I could give somebody. There's no cohesive story. It's just more of to a degree, parts of it get repetitive because they're still having to explain to a degree on what the blossom's going to be if you plant it and that kind of stuff, even though we've covered it a number of times already.
Well, and if you're reading every book, even if every book isn't explaining it, every other book is explaining it.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the same things over and over.
Yeah.
I like the first couple issues of New Mutants, and then they're randomly not in space anymore, and they're focusing on other characters, and then they're back in space, but then they're back on Earth. And I'm like, what is happening here? They print these out of order? I didn't understand what was going on.
What about that Excalibur book?
The first issue was one of the worst comics I read last year.
That was...
I've continued to read it. I like the idea behind it, but the execution is very poor. Just month to month. I told myself I would get through all 6. I think I may have one, whatever. I'm just doing the chart, right? I'm just doing the chart at the back. I'm doing them in order. So I may have one number 6 left to still read, and I may have to really strongly consider holding off on basically all of them going forward, because I don't know how much more of this I can take. They're real rough, which is so sad because of how good the lead-in was. Should have had 1 or 2 books. I'll give the Giant Size a chance. I'll give Wolverine a try. The Giant Size should be fun. I mean, that's Hickman. They're one-off stories. Yeah. That's okay. Wolverine seems fun. I've heard good reviews. I like Ben Percy, so we'll see. We'll see if that's any better. But yeah, God,
I'm still really hoping a year from now something will have clicked, and this will be some part of big plan that will put some
back
of this
on
in
Green Malkin Lane playing baseball in the X-Mansion.
Well, I will keep going back to this. I know Hickman is a good writer. I have read enough of his stuff to know that he's a good writer. I don't have any fucking clue what he's trying to write right now, but I'm hoping there will be a payoff that will make it...
X of Swords, baby. The look on Kevin's face is
I loved Hawks and Pox.
Yeah.
I read the first 2 issues of X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
I read the first Excalibur.
Mm-hmm.
I read something else.
Marauders.
I loved Hawks and Pox. And if you handed me a stack of all of those right now for free and said, you got to read these, take them home and read them, I'd get to them at some point.
The
but
current X-Men books?
Yeah.
Or? Yeah.
If you just force them on me, I'm just not excited.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed Hawks and Pox, but I feel like I enjoyed the conversation, what came out of Hawks and Pox, while reading it more than what's actually in Hawks and Pox. Like, there was potential for what was being done feeling sort of new and different and that kind of thing. But when the hardcover came out, I was the first one to be like, but I don't know where the payoff for that is. Like, I don't know if I'm going to end up being like, this is a story I really need to reread, therefore I need this hardcover, or not. Like,
What did you end up deciding?
I still haven't bought it.
Okay.
Because I still kind of feel like it's all set up, and it's still all set up. Like, until I see what the payoff is, I don't know if I can get behind.
And I think that
it.
is an interesting point. Is you say payoff, whereas I think Marvel wants you to believe that there is no payoff. This is just the books going forward forever. In which I say, okay, sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're already seeing the steep drops, right? You're already seeing.
Well,
We've seen.
so there was a story in Hawks and Pox around Moira and this timeline and making decisive decisions because of all the past experiences and that kind of stuff. And we haven't really, nothing has changed in 7 issues that we didn't already know from Hawks and Pox, basically.
Yeah.
We didn't know about the Crucible.
Well, and I don't. All the setup.
I think the Crucible is a neat idea, but we knew about the regeneration. We knew about the back. Like, it's just a natural progression of, oh, yes, I guess I could use it that way.
The setup in all the other books too. Having Excalibur be like the Magic team, okay, that's fine. Having Psylocke become Captain Britain, okay. Like, I guess you get rid of the Asian Psylocke, so you're going back to the original one. Okay, I mean, we'll see. Sure, it's interesting. We'll see what we do with it. But I mean, it won't last because they'll just go back to Captain Britain one day. Marauders makes no sense. Fucking just take an X-Jet and just go wherever the hell you want.
The Blackbird.
Why the hell are they on boats? Like, it doesn't. I mean, it's like you force this book to tell a story, but it makes no sense whatsoever.
And you think Marauders Nightcrawler would be there, but
He's been there on and off.
okay.
But A Fallen Angel again was an unreadable mess. I have no idea what happened in that book. I couldn't tell you. I read 5 of the 6 and went, I don't remember a single thing about this. X-Force. It's cool. You're their Black Ops team. That's been every X-Force book that's ever happened, so you're not doing anything new. It was okay. The first couple issues were fine, but it's just sort of spinning its wheels.
It feels like he's going. Benjamin's going for his nine circle stuff, like with that paint, with that ostrich, the guy with the
I probably like X-Force out of all of them the most, but it's not what I want. And what else is there? What am I missing? Oh, no, discounting X-Men.
New Mutants.
Oh, New Mutants. New Mutants is a confusing mess because like it keeps flip-flopping where it's taking place and who's involved in the issues, and I don't understand.
Is it New Mutants? Is it Starjammers?
I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand what is going on in that book. So it looks nice, but the first couple issues I thought were okay, but then I'm like, wait, why are we in like some barn like on Earth? Like what happened? Oh, they're back in space, but now they're back. I just don't get it. It doesn't read well. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm more excited for the next books. Like I said, the giant size one that just came out, Wolverine. I'm more excited for those. I think those have a better chance of being better titles.
Isn't there supposed to be a Moira series at some point this year?
Some point.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be cool, right? I'm excited for that.
Hey, I'm kind of excited for that, although it's not part of what you're talking about. I'm kind of excited. It seems like an interesting thing, that giant size with the Jam book.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
where they're redoing
the Claremont one. Yeah. That could be cool.
Could be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a one-shot, kind of like, it seems to me the kind of same appeal as something like Grand Design.
Right. We'll see.
Grand Design's getting an omnibus.
Yeah.
Aren't there just 3 books of that?
Yeah, but
Is there
they're
enough
putting
for
all
an
3 in
omnibus?
an omnibus because they can.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And there's
So you make the
is it
money.
Fantastic Four they're doing a grand design on next?
Yeah. That's it. That's the podcast.
So I'm going
We're
to
gonna
do
wrap
a
up.
shout out to Mike who stopped into the shop on Sunday.
Oh yeah, I wasn't
visiting.
here. Yeah. I was like, I wouldn't listen to stop by.
Yes.
Shout out to Bryce.
Good thing Marshall wasn't here.
Yeah, I know. when he came in, I'm just like, you picked a very good Sunday to come in.
Not that Marshall's bad. It's just Marshall
two
would
out
be
of
like,
4 Sundays.
Yeah.
You're pretty close.
and Marshall would be like, I'm not a podcast person. All right,
Yeah.
I don't do this.
But no, I always like it when listeners stop in
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff.
It's great.
So,
It's great. Well, we got to thank our high tier backers, and it's the beginning of the month, so we got to thank all our $5.
Oh, you could have had Larson doing this.
Could have been another 30-minute outro,
Yeah.
but that's all right. We have to thank our good friend Joe Duff, as well as Andrew Nelson Mendez over at Recovery of an Anime Junkie podcast. Don't forget Craig Anderson over at CraigPAnderson.com. If you need a life coach to help you become a better professional, go to CraigPAnderson.com. He puts up great videos on his Facebook page, too. Jimmy Rivera has the Social Forum podcast. That's the Social Forum, FOURUM.buzzsprout.com. James Law is in our newest high tier Patreon backer. That is our good friend Hellboy_ebooks on Twitter. That's his Twitter handle, so please go follow him on there. He loves him some Hellboy, or Mr. Rama as he's known in Patreon. And we have all of our Sidekick backer, our $5 backers on Patreon. That is Dennis Jansen, Edgar Moreno, David Safar, Christopher Noyes, Ivan Liskanik, Mark Long, Father Dante, Aaron Wright, Chris Palaki, Paula Schultz, Brian Morawski, Don Kilson, Tim from Virginia Beach. I went to Virginia Beach a number of times. I used to go there a lot when I was growing up. Andrew Crucieri, Miles Gakula, David Baroldi, Chris Bunch, Alex McHale, List of the Living Dead, Lockhart, Enerban, Banerjee, Jack Ildefonso, JT, PJ Ryder, Joe Cacciadorian over at Identity Stunt, Bryce Larson quotes, I'm so sorry, Bryce, I'm so sorry, Joseph Rodriguez, Robert Lane, Mason Barber, Ames Foster, Steven Sepia, Brian Wyckoff, Just Another Chris, Tim Martin, Tyler Willits, Christopher Haith, Mel V, Zach Johnson, Joe Frazier, Verum Libertas, Litwin Studios, Andrew Nikovich, Wally Ansari, and Timothy O'Brien. Thank you guys all very much for your support on the Comic Conspiracy Podcast. We always like it. Please visit comicconspiracypodcast.com, geekbox.net, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify for all our previous episodes. You can rate and review us. It always helps. And if you like the YouTubes, you can go to youtube.com/comicsconspiracy and listen to our podcast there in audio format. Also, the long form questions can go to the Comic Conspiracy at geekbox.net. We read those every couple of years after you send them in. I don't know. Now it's a thing, apparently. It's funny. It's funny because patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy is where you can go to kick us a couple bucks a month for this podcast. If you buy comic books from us, that's totally cool. You don't have to kick in. But, if you would like to give some support to Brock and Bryce and Charlie and Toby and Kevin and when he's here. People that support us on Patreon, my guys here get a cut of that too, so that always helps. So please go over and support everyone over at patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy. And if you would like to purchase physical comic books, you can go to comicsconspiracy.biz. That is our web store. You can buy everything we have in the store. We had a slight computer problem over the weekend, which may result in it doesn't seem to have affected our website yet, but some possible questionable stock levels. We're trying to figure out what's happening while we're getting our point-of-sale system all back up and loaded. Our wonderful Comic Hub, we had a computer crash, and so we're kind of in the process of getting everything loaded back in. The backup did not quite go the way it wanted.
Is that hashtag Hub Life?
Hub Life, baby. Love the Hub. Hate defective backups.
Are they defective if they don't happen?
Well, yeah, sure. So, yeah, but you place your orders there. We'll figure it out. If it's something we actually don't have in stock, we'll let you know. If you would like to go and support some of our wonderful people here on this podcast, you can go to conspiratobrock.com. That's Brock's blog, video pull list, and unboxing videos over there. You can go visit Charlie at Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension podcast. It's a podcast about Doctor Who. They record pretty much every week. They're wrapping up, though. They're almost done. New season's over. They're finished the old stuff. What do they do now? Let them know what you want to see. And LeanneHale.com. That's my wife Leanne's art webpage. She has links there to her Etsy store, which is etsy.com/shop/LeanneHillArt. You can see all her stuff on there. Buy some prints and commissions from her over on Etsy. And we have them at the store, too. And Ryan Higgins Ryan, that is myself on Twitter. If you want to give me a follow, Brock is Brock Sager. Larson Bryce, that's Bryce Larson. Go follow him. LARSEN BRYCE. That's Bryce on Twitter. If you follow him, tell him how much you miss him not being on the podcast this week. Damn that coronavirus. Toby is Toby XI. Hopefully he'll be back next week. Charlie's Insanity in Chaos. Kevin is That's Kevin Sharp, and the store is Comics Con Store. Please follow all of us. And get ready for a lot of hot Super Tuesday tweets coming from me probably after this podcast is over.
On your Ryan Higgins Ryan account, yeah.
Geekbox is another podcast I do every week. What did we talk about this week on the Geekbox? I recorded it last night. I've already forgotten.
Video games? Nintendo?
What did we talk about on the podcast I recorded last night? I can't even remember. That's how long ago it was.
It was last night.
We definitely talked about Nintendo. I know that for sure. How about I vamp for 2 seconds while the Geekbox.net website loads so I can look at the show notes?
Did you actually load it?
Oh, that's of course. Justin Haywall talked about his experience going to Disneyland and going on Rise of the Resistance. That was the big thing. And we also talked about Robert Pattinson's Batman a little bit. But the Rise of the Resistance talk, that was the big talk. Very excited.
Wait,
going in a
wasn't that
couple
like
weeks.
2 weeks ago?
But we did our Geekboxies last week. We did our stuff. So
okay.
We talked about it this week as his trip to Rise of the Resistance. Okay. And do not forget about Manga Machinations. It's a manga podcast hosted by some of our listeners, which I've been on a few times. So please go give those guys a listen to. Always appreciate when you listen to our friends. Thank you all for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you next week.